Our food, it's a necessity to our lives. Gathering it has progressed from farming to fertilizer to new technology, genetically modifying organisms. Did you know as of 2012, 86% of your corn was genetically modified? An organism that has been genetically modified is called a GMO, or a genetically modified organism. So what exactly is a GMO?
So hello everyone, and this is Dr. Stone with us from the Middle School of Ryukyu. And today he will be explaining to us what GMOs are.
So basically, what a GMO is, genetically modified organism, it's an organism in which its genetic structure has been modified. Humans have been genetically modifying organisms for 10,000 years, but not in the way you would think. It's more natural, more close to adaptation, except controlled. For example, dogs. Uh, how did we get our domesticated dogs we have nowadays? Well, they used to be very ravenous wolves, but over a long period of domestication, they have finally become what we know today, our household pets.
So Dr. Stone, how are organisms genetically modified today, and what impact do they have?
Well, there are many ways to genetically modify an organism. Basically, you're cutting out a part of the DNA of one organism and placing it to the other organism. You can do this with enzymes, as shown in the picture. And there are also other techniques like microinjection or a gene gun. As for the impact, there are many different debates on that, but let me just give you an example. The story of the Hawaiian rainbow papaya. In Hawaii, there is a papaya disease going around called PSRV. Due to this, the amount of papaya being produced was cut in half. Biotechnologists knew if they put bits of the PSRV disease in the plant's DNA, they would be protected. So they used genetic engineering and isolated the PSRV coat protecting genes from the disease itself and put it into papaya seeds. So they used genetic engineering and now the plant is protected. They used a gene gun to insert bits of the virus in the papaya DNA. The genetically modified seeds were planted, and now the papaya industry is back and running because the seeds worked. But for some, this is not a rainbow story. According to projects like the Non-GMO Project, GMOs are a health problem and they damage the environment. From the website, quote, 80% of all GMOs grown worldwide are engineered for herbicide tolerance. As a result, use of toxic herbicides like Roundup has increased 15 times since GMOs were introduced. GMO crops are also responsible for the emergence of superweeds and superbugs, which can only be killed with ever more toxic poisons like 2,4-D, a major ingredient in Agent Orange. GMOs are a direct extension of chemical agriculture and are developed and sold by the world's biggest chemical companies. The long-term impacts of GMOs are unknown, and once released into the environment, these novel organisms cannot be recalled. How do GMOs affect farmers? Because GMOs are novel life forms, biotechnology companies have been able to obtain patents with which to restrict their use. As a result, the companies that make GMOs now have the power to sue farmers whose fields are contaminated with GMOs, even when it is a result of inevitable drift from neighboring fields. GMOs therefore pose a serious threat to farmer sovereignty and to the national food security of any country where they are grown, including the United States. Are GMOs safe? Most developed nations do not consider GMOs to be safe. In more than 60 countries around the world, including Australia, Japan, and all of the countries in the European Union, there are significant restrictions or outright bans on the production and sale of GMOs. In the U.S., the government has approved GMOs based on studies conducted by the same corporations that created them and profit from their sale. Increasingly, Americans are taking matters into their own hands and choosing to option out the GMO experiment. You know, humans have been exploring the field of genetic engineering for a long time, but in the 1900s, exploration skyrocketed.
Jim Watson and Francis Crick discovered the structure of DNA, which is what tells the organism what proteins to produce and ultimately is the script of the organism. What makes the organism fast, big, blue, or even furry? But the only question was how could it all be unscrambled, and what were the genes for intelligence, eye color, or even cancer? Professor Herb was studying bacteria when he realized in certain bacteria an enzyme cut the DNA at certain places. Theoretically, it could be attached to another DNA, and the DNA being the script for what the organism's traits are, you could manipulate the traits of an organism, knowing what part of the DNA to give it its traits. Professor Herb and Professor Cohen took a strand of DNA from a toad, and using enzymes, they put that DNA piece into a bacteria's DNA. And the bacteria was tricked into reproducing the bacteria rapidly. In 1976, GeneTech was founded by Robert A. Swanson and biochemist Dr. Herbert W. Boyer. Ever since GeneTech has been founded by Boyer and Swanson, they have focused most of their efforts on serious or life-threatening medical conditions using genetic engineering. Then in 1994, GMOs finally got into the grocery stores. Many corporations and organizations are now further exploring the field of genetic engineering. Many crops are being genetically modified with the exchange of better foods for money or to have higher food yields. The Golden Rice Project is working on a new type of genetically engineered rice. Each year, 1.15 million people die from a lack of vitamin A. A rice was created using genetic engineering to add vitamin A into rice. This is called golden rice. It can save lives because it has vitamin A content.
The further exploration of genetic engineering has progressed greatly since our primitive ancestors started to do it. Its encounter with people have been good and bad. Its exchanges with the world has yet ceased to show itself, but things are looking good. In the future, we might be able to use genetic engineering techniques to terraform a planet, and with a growing population, we will have a lot of mouths to feed. Genetic engineering might solve those problems. Or will it be our downfall?
Yes, I be your woman. Yes, I be your baby. Yes, I be whatever that you tell me when you're ready. Yes, I be your girl, forever your lady. You ain't never gotta